Sylvia, y'all ready? Before we get started, I want to let y'all know we're gonna, after the invocation and the prayer, the prayer and the pledge of allegiance, we're gonna table item with the housing authority for next week, and we're gonna move up to executive session and knock it out quick, and then we'll come right back. So we'll all rise for the regular meeting called today at 7 for the invocation, please. Lord, we'd like to give you thanks for this beautiful day. We ask you to watch over this community as people come and go. We ask you to bless them with good health. The ones that aren't feeling well, we ask you to look after them just a little bit more. We ask you to watch our children as they're getting ready for school to start up, and bless the teachers as they're coming up for another year. Grateful for all the volunteers and everybody that helps the community go forward. In your name, we ask for your grace. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Like I said, item 4.1, we're going to table till next week, and we're going to go ahead and close the open meeting right now at 7:02 to go to executive session to look at the items. A, section 551.071, consultation with our city attorney of municipal court items. Item 14B, 551.071, consultation of city attorney with Naismith Engineering. Item 14C, 551.071, consultation with city attorney with structures for the public works. And item 14D, 551.071, consultation with city attorney of Redfish Bay Bait House lease.
Mayor, excuse me, if you're gonna table item number 4, you need a motion to that effect.
Okay.
I make a motion that we table agenda item 4.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Okay.
I think
I don't need those glasses.
Okay, we got 9:18 out of executive session. Items 14A, B, and D, there's no action. And what's the favor of the council for item 14C?
I make a motion that we authorize the city manager to move forward with litigation on the contractor.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This is gonna bring us to item 4.2, plan and zoning documents, which is,
We table that.
we did the
No, we
housing
tabled.
authority, sir.
Oh, it's the housing
Housing
authority?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Put cart before the horse here.
We just only did a
So it's a reinstatement.
4.1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Ms. Sweat here by any chance? No? The plans only meet how many times? Once a month? Twice a month.
They meet by, they're supposed to meet at least once a month, they meet by special meetings, depending on.
Okay. And then they're like council, you miss 3 in a row no matter what, then you're off.
Was there any other applicants, Sylvia?
Do we have a full board to work without her? Unless we find to leave it open?
We have 8 members, and she makes the
By chance, do you know how long her term is left?
She was just recently appointed.
Oh, okay.
My thought is she's already missed. You know, open the door for somebody else.
That was due to illness, it says.
But we can't forecast you get ill again.
Wow.
You can't forecast on anybody.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, what's the favor of the council on that one?
Well, I make a motion that we reappoint Catherine to this position
I
for the
second.
remainder of her term.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
One opposed. This brings us to item 4.3.
Serve on the board. Ms. Vasquez has submitted an application for consideration.
Mr. Kubek is the alternate right now, correct?
Correct. We're asking that he be moved to the regular member and
Okay.
the new appointee to be designated the alternate member,
Which would be Ms. Vasquez.
Ms. Vasquez.
Will be the favor of council on that.
Well, I make a motion that we move Sandy Kubek to the full member and Ms. Vasquez as the alternate for Board of Adjustments.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let's put it to item 5, the consent agenda. All the following consent agenda considered to be routine by the city council will be enacted one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless so council members so request. If the discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda, will be considered separately. See, items 5.1 and 5.2.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Ms. Carrillo?
Mayor and council, item 7.1 is the advanced funding agreement with TxDOT. If you'll recall, TxDOT awarded us a $1 million grant that would build the 10-foot hike and bike trail, 8 to 10 feet hike and bike trail that connects our library, Newberry Park, and all of the high schools. This is the advanced funding required by TxDOT to get that process started.
I'm still catching up to it.
So this is just the initial groundwork for what we approved in prior, correct?
Correct. You previously authorized staff and LJA to submit for the grant. It was awarded. If you'll recall, we asked for matching from the school.
Correct.
They could not meet the match. We have trimmed some cost. The city is going to take on the match to that grant.
I'm sorry, what was the total amount of that grant?
It's a little shy of $1 million. The city's match is about $300,000.
Okay.
Is there any questions from council?
No.
I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2016-786.
I
Second?
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 7-2, Sylvia?
Yes, sir. I'm getting there on that. The next, actually, 7-2 and 7-3 relate to the same parcel. Mr. Young, who is the descendant of Mrs. Young, is asking for relief of a weed lot lien that was placed on the property. His mother, Eva Young, left him the property. There is a weed lot lien. Penalty and interest, the original assessment from $550 in '94 that ballooned to $8,500 with penalties and interest. And the original $285 lien that is now over $500. Mr. Young is offering to pay the original amount of the liens, just waiving the penalty and the interest.
Yes, sir.
John Edward Young. I have the release of the payment lien on the one that was trying towards 8,500. I have the lien on that, so I went to San and, I can look at that.
Yes, sir.
But I turned it into the city, so I told them to take that off the deal. I think that's taken care of. So I think what I have is the weed. And I went to the city, off Avenue A, and they gave me this printout, but they said it was originally $285, and then they added $533 penalty interest, and it's $918.39 is what they gave me. But where I went to school here in Ranch, it's only $818.39. So, I mean,
Mr. Young is offering to pay the original amount and just waiving all the penalties and interest, correct?
I really don't want to do that, so I don't think it was David, I don't think it was on the right lot, because the city has a lot right next door.
Right.
That's about 6 foot high, and I always mowed my mom's for the one on Arch Street. I mowed them, I don't think it's even on the right lot.
You need these back, sir. So council has the right just to waive everything, right?
Correct.
Do I hear a motion by council to waive all liens? And start off fresh? What's the favor of the council? Open for suggestions.
I'll make a motion to resolve the waivers.
Waive both liens.
Waive all liens.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? This brings to item 7-4.
The next item is a request by the Spirit of Aransas Pass for hot funds in the amount of $10,000 for the first annual Bacon Fest scheduled for October 22nd to 23rd. Proceeds to benefit the Aransas Pass Fire and Police Departments. And I believe you all should have a Bacon Fest packet in front of you. Right now, the hot fund item has sufficient money to cover the request.
Where does it leave that afterwards?
66 less 25 less 10. $31,800.
And when do that thing gets, money gets put back in, how, like every quarter?
Quarter.
Do you know how much usually comes in, give or take, every quarter?
We budget $250,000 annually. 175 of that goes to the chamber,
Right.
and then we have the other 75 to work with.
Because I know we start getting, requests on those starting next year. So,
Well, usually, I mean, right now, they usually come in all in the spring, right? Spring and summer.
started in the March. I'll make a motion that we grant the request from Spirit of Aransas Pass for $10,000 for the first annual Bacon Fest.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 My arteries hardening up now.
If I may have the floor 1 minute.
Yes, sir.
Again, as you know, this past year, we did Vets Fishing with Vets #2, and we went up to 187 veteran anglers this year. And it was extremely successful. And we also took that money back up to San Antonio for the Polytrauma Center, and we built a brand-new sidewalk and out to a gazebo for the disabled to get out there because they didn't have a way to get there before this new widened sidewalk put them out there. We also have a little bit of money left in our purse, so to speak, that I don't know if our local veterans or the VFW needs a little help, if you could direct them to us and see if we can't help the VFW here in our community
Okay.
or any veterans personally that we may be able to help this year. We do have some money left in there, okay? And with that being said, for the council again, I'd like to present all of you our plaque and a very thank you for everything you do. Thank you. Thank all of you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan.
Thanks, Jan.
We may have a,
An unmet need at Veterans Memorial Park. There are some items at Veterans Memorial, plus there is some family members who have requested bricks and things, but they're trying to raise money to get the veterans' names on the bricks or on the monument or on a bench, so it's a possibility.
That's why we left money for the local community. That's exactly why we did.
Good, good, good.
This year. We also gave some to the Patriot Guard, because they were short some money for flags and stuff, so we did make a donation to them also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7.5 is consider an act on approving the rules of decorum. I don't know if the council recalls, but we had an issue with the bids at Community Park. And we had the concrete slab and how it was able to be brought back. The reason that happened is because the council has not adopted Robert's Rules of Order or standardized rules of decorum. Had we adopted that, those things would have had to come back out for bid, and it is a more structured way to handle the council meetings. So the staff is asking that we adopt Robert's Rules of Order in order to really bring some method to some of the madness that sometimes happens on the floor. It's not intended to cut off anybody. It's just intended to open public comment during public comment periods. I don't know if the community is aware they can comment during agenda items. It is a public meeting.
Right.
When what this would really do is during citizens' comments, it would create a more structured environment. So at the next council meeting, we bring a report, we bring a response. It keeps some of the dialogue here from going back and forth. So that is what the staff is asking the council to adopt.
So here for a motion for approval.
Yeah, well, I'll make a motion, we approve Robert's Robert's Rules of Orders for our decorum.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 7-6. Tax
Well, this is a great one. Actually, 7.6 and 7.7 both deal with the tax rate. This year's effective tax rate, which is basically the tax rate that is necessary to bring in the same amount of money that we brought in last year, is 0.688. Our current tax rate is 0.6803. So there is a difference of about 7/100ths of a cent, which translates into about $12 to a property that's worth about $125,000 in Aransas Pass per year. That's about as steady as we could keep the tax rate. The effective rate is 0.71 cents per $100, which is the effective tax rate plus 8%. That's a way to keep cities growing. What I have committed to the council is that the effective tax rate be adopted. The effective tax rate is what, this will be our third year that we propose a tax rate that does not have an increase or a large increase to the residents. The reason it went to 0.688 is because we lost about $6 million in value across all three counties. If you'll see, last year's tax base was $531 million. This year's adjusted tax base is $524 million. So we've lost about 6.5 across the three counties, and a lot of that is what is in protest that isn't considered in the overall rate. So in order for us to continue to do current operations, we have to be leaner, meaner, and more efficient, and that means we continue to do what we can with the money that's coming in and not ask for any more. The next item is when those council meetings need to be held. That is going to be the 22nd and the 29th. What we are proposing to the council is this year the tax rate as well as the budget be adopted as one piece. If we need to roll over additional meetings for the budget, those will happen in September in advance of our October 1 fiscal year.
You said it's 0.688, correct?
0.688655 is the exact.
Nice.
The last one.
It's big.
Well, I make a motion that we set the tax rate at 0.688655.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Lawrence?
We still need item 7 is setting the
7, right?
date. Mhm.
Nope. Well, I make a motion that we set the
Okay.
tax rate days August 2nd,
22nd.
2016, and August 29th.
Okay.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And it's at the same time, 7, do we have to?
Yes, correct.
This brings us down to 7-8, request to list annex.
Mayor and Council, as you're aware, Mr. Dutton and some folks in Sherwood Forest petitioned the court to block the annexation of Sherwood Forest. The court ruled in favor of the city. The city has a certain time period to provide services and is working on the funding of those services as we speak. Mr. Dutton has petitioned the council to begin disannexation procedures.
What service other than sewer is that needs to be out there?
Water, garbage,
Oh, I thought we had water.
police, fire. We do. We have water, we have all of the services with the exception of sewer. Correct.
So sewer's the only thing lacking?
Correct.
Wasn't there a grant or a,
Correct. The city currently has a $500,000 grant for Fallman Acres, which is right above Sherwood Forest. We have redrawn the Fallman Acres grant proposal and submitted it to San Patricio County. What that would do, it allows us to extend further right at the periphery of Sherwood Forest. So in our capital improvement plan, that is one of the projected expenses to finish that extension into Sherwood Forest.
all the way out to the bypass?
All the way to the bypass, yes, sir.
And what's the time frame
That's
on
what I was
that?
gonna ask.
Within the next 18 months, the council's already approved the $3 million funding that was out of this last bond package. So we're also working with GrantWorks. That same Fallman Acres grant was only available to counties because it's a Colonia grant, which is basically the elimination of blight in areas. It has been open to cities as well. So we are working with GrantWorks to use our bond money as a matching fund to be able to extend that even further.
Now, and so we have already been awarded this grant?
We've already been awarded the Fallman Acres grant, correct? At this point, we're in the process of seeking beneficiaries to that grant. We have to go door to door and knock and have them agree to tie on to our sewer service once it's extended.
And what would be the cost to the residents to tie in?
Nothing.
Nothing, it would be free.
It would be free. The abandonment of their septic, the extension of the line onto the private property, the culvert across is all free to the resident.
And they have a certain time frame to sign on to that?
Yes, they must sign on. We will be going through before the end of August. The GrantWorks people sent a person out and have not reached the number of beneficiaries. Now that we've redrawn some of those boundaries, there are other people that we need to reach. So we need to be doing a door-to-door before the end of the month.
It's kind of like the similar deal we have off of Highland.
Exactly.
Because I've been here a lot of
1069. It's exactly not Highland, but what was on 1069. The extension of the water and
Avenue A.
correct.
How long before we have them hooked up?
Highland has been delayed by the contractor. I think the lift station parts may have just arrived. Highland should be finishing tying up before the end of the summer months. That's Highland. Because remember, we made the turn. We came up 1069. We made the turn. Then we amended and extended to the cemetery and then made the turn in that way. What Fallman Acres would allow us to do is bring all the way back down, connect. You will have a proposal in front of you next week on the other side, which is next to Public Works Building. There's a business center that is proposed there. So it really would allow us to connect all of that, bring it back down Myrtle and Guile, and begin expansion into the north side of the town.
I had a resident ask me about off Avenue A where they live. Their need to either replace their septic or ready to tie onto the city. That's all.
On Avenue A?
Yeah, I would ask you about it.
So when we're talking about them connecting to, is it, for instance, if you have a person that has rental properties and they have 4 or 5 trailers there and they want to hook up, what, would that be the same? Would that be free for them or what?
Anybody that can meet the terms of the grant, there's got to be an elimination of some blight. If they meet the terms of the grant, yes, it is of no cost to them completely to connect. Those properties that have multiples on them that are quote unquote grandfathered, we have to create some kind of internal distribution system in there because they're going to have one connection point and then it has to distribute from that one connection point. So that would be something we work through with the grant people and the engineers on how do we create, whether it's a water distribution or a sewer distribution system.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, I make a motion that we deny the request for de-annexation.
Second.
You have something to say, sir?
Yes, I do. I would like to know what court case you guys are trying to refer to for this petition, because there has never been a court case.
It was a court
There was
case,
a suit-
Mr. Jimenez.
There was a suit,
That has nothing to do
there was a
with
suit
this.
filed in San Patricio County.
That was it.
That's correct.
But it wasn't me. This is a completely different thing. Now, this has to do with you guys didn't provide a full plan. You have to, in a certain amount of time frame, give us the 4 things. The same stuff you give anybody in town here, you have to give over there. And that's what this is about. Has nothing to do with that. Nothing.
That's the same
No,
item
it's
the
not.
judge ruled on.
No,
That was
it's
the
not.
same cause that was brought to action, that a
There is
full service
another
plan was not
part of
provided.
the law that which I can do a petition, and I did it, and that, which is completely different.
So it's a total separate action.
Yes, it is. So if you want to go this path, that's fine. We'll go to court, and that's fine with me, but this is a completely different thing. You need to go through the entire petition, and you'll see it's not the same thing. Not at all.
Well, you have a motion and a second on the floor, Mayor.
What's the further of the council?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And your name and stuff for the record, just to do.
Todd Thomas, Todd 21735.
Thank you. 7-9, Sylvia?
Mayor and Council, item 7-9 is a tax resale property that is proposed. It is at the corner of McCampbell and Spencer. The petition in front of you. The tax resale property, an offer was made by Mr. Ochoa in the amount of $3,500. The amount due to all the entities is $9,100. The amount due to the city of Aransas Pass is $24,1825.
Do you have it on a map, Sylvia?
Yes,
That's on a corner lot, right?
correct. It is right here.
He was here before and offered like $100 or something.
Correct. It's actually 2 lots that straddle.
Right?
So it's the lot to the left
It's
there?
this and this.
Oh, it's that structure also?
Yes, it's these 2.
Is that like an abandoned house?
So it's gonna have-
I'm not sure. This is an image date of 2011.
It's on taxes, right? Diverted taxes. On tax rolls. Get it on tax rolls. It's the only one he's interested in.
Mm-hmm.
He's persistent. What's the favor of the council on this item?
Well, I make a motion that we award the bid to Mr. Ochoa in the amount of $3,500.
Second.
All fair say aye.
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 I'm opposed.
This brings us to item 710. There's nothing there.
Oh, I'm
right,
sorry,
Joy?
there was a better map right there. It's the same, but it was highlighted. Mayor and Council, I will ask that you table this item because what was noticed on the agenda and the title of the agenda memo are slightly different. They both deal with the fire prevention code, and they both deal with the fire inspection fees and the annual fire inspection that's currently required by municipal code. The staff is in agreement with the onerous burden on the small businesses in town, and that it should really be held to hospitals, hotels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How we get to that particular point, we're still, the devil is in the details. The fire chief has presented some fees that he thinks are reasonable and cities our size use, and they model San Patricio County. You have not received those fees yet, that fee schedule. What you received was a fee schedule for San Patricio County. So I'm asking that you table the item to the 22nd of August to give us time to complete it.
There, most of the table.
Make a motion that we table 710.
A second.
All first, say aye.
Aye.
Who was the second by?
Moving on to 711.
Trying to go as fast as I can. My little fingers can't go that fast on the mouse. The Destination Downtown Aransas Pass had some money allocated to it in the bond 2014 account. The group had agreed on benches, and this is the bench that they had agreed on. The sayings on the back of the bench are nautical in nature. There's about 15 sayings, all positive sayings related to the history of Aransas Pass and our shrimping heritage. The company that the downtown group wanted to use was a national company, and the benches were going to be made of recycled plastic and metal. The problem was we could never get a firm number from that company. So we've ousted that company. We did go visit Mr. Lancaster, who has a business in Aransas Pass. He can meet or beat the price of the benches, and they're locally made. So this is the mock-up that he's been given. So what I have is an amount not to exceed $15,000, which is 15 benches along the downtown corridor. If you notice, the downtown district also painted the footings of the lights. We will be going through and painting the lights as well. The lights were worked on today, and again tomorrow. They should all work, including those in front of Guadalajara. And if you've noticed, there's one flower bed also that has been revamped. They're going to be revamping all of the beds. That one bed was a trial bed, and it hasn't really worked out as well as perhaps we would like it to see. But this is moving in that direction. We've also met with TxDOT and are redoing our maintenance agreement to allow some of those businesses to have awnings, to remove some of the dilapidated structures, and to allow temporary benches and tables and things in the downtown, in that walkway
So
area.
even those benches, TxDOT has to approve that?
Correct. And TxDOT has given us an okay to proceed so long as they are removable in nature. So
Okay.
the design will have removable boats that can come up.
What are the sayings?
Just in case.
Just curious.
I don't have them in front of me right now, but I can sure email them to you so y'all can
Okay.
comment before they get
All right.
put on the benches.
So what's the favor of the council in this item?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agreement with H. Lancaster Company for the amount not to exceed 15,000.
Second the motion?
All first, say aye.
Aye.
Let's see.
The next item is the Aransas Pass Civic Center. Sarah Lee is requesting to go out for bids. Her Municipal Development District Board has agreed that the carpet at the Civic Center needs to be replaced. They have the funds. They're seeking council approval to go out for requests for proposals on that carpet.
Is it just in the main area, the carpet? I think that's only,
The main area,
okay.
the main station, and it's gonna be over, I've gotten some prices, it's over the $50,000 mark, so we need to publish it.
You should be talking over there.
So I am asking y'all's approval to go out for bids on that.
Because I know we've been discussing this and
It just happens to be over a certain amount, so we need to go ahead and run it in the paper for 2 weeks and
yeah,
do.
because I know
our
we've
stuff
been
up.
discussing it when I was on the board, and I know it's
Absolutely.
been.
So we have the money, it's available, and they want to go ahead and do it, but we wanted to come to y'all first to get permission to go out for bids.
I'll make a motion that we authorize Sarah to go out for bids for carpet at the Aransas Pass Civic Center.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mayor, I'm gonna abstain because I sit on that board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9-1, Sylvia?
That is Mr. Allen's item.
Mr. Allen. Public hearing.
Plats.
This is from
Miguel?
the
There's no schedule for public hearing on the agenda.
Yeah, just consider an act.
Yeah, that's all.
Consider
it's in
that.
that. Should we table this for the next meeting also? So we get it,
Plats have a really strict timeline. I don't know if we can.
the way we put it on the public notice though.
These are not public notice plats. These are regular, non-public notice plats, and that's why they're on the agenda as a consider an act item. They don't require, but because it is a council meeting, they're available for public comment. But typically, the plats have been reviewed and approved by planning and zoning. They are recommending approval of those plats. They are in compliance with state law. So
And they're non-public notice because they've not been residential in the last,
5 years. They're not zoned or deed restricted to single family or duplex, and they haven't been for the past 5 years. So that's why they're non-public notice.
You good with that, Alan?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Thank you.
you reach into the cobwebs, Alan.
I just want to make sure.
Can we just
So if we'll do 9-1 separately or all
I
six?
think you can do
Okay,
both
can we
jointly.
have-
Yeah, you can do both at the same time.
Can I have ask some questions? on
Sure,
this?
I'm going to bring the plats
I
up
was
right now.
gonna say, that you just can't go right.
The first plat you're going to see is the Burton and Danforth. That's outside the city. That's between on Mooney and 361, and they're proposing an RV park in on that subdivision. It's about an 18-acre tract of land that they're going to develop the RVs.
So it actually borders 361, is that correct?
Right. The southern part is.
Here's Morgan Lane.
361, or the
And here's Mooney
East
Lane.
Shore.
Oh, okay, I see.
There's 361.
Where's
for the old
361?
parking?
That's
This
what's
is right here.
The
Here.
storage place around that area?
See, can you
Yeah,
do that?
Okay.
one block.
I have a question though,
Can you
as far
turn that?
as the streets, are they wide enough?
They're
I'm just kind of, because you're gonna have RVs turning in there, and they're gonna be cars coming back and forth, so I don't know if it's, the streets are,
if they're paved wide enough.
yes.
They're 40-foot roadways. We are requiring them to dedicate 10 feet off each of the roadways to make them at least 30 feet on their side. But there's no additional pavement being required. So at this point, because they're out in the county, we can't do too much on the,
So we have gotten 10 feet street dedication on Morgan and Mooney.
yes.
Can you
On
bring,
both streets?
can you
Yes.
bring those up so I, the actual, so I can, 'cause I
Up,
just-
up on Google Earth?
Yes, I just think the streets are not wide enough.
Ingleside, right?
No.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
There's the. So we've asked for an additional 10 feet off of Morgan and an additional 10 feet off of Mooney into the tract, into their tract.
So they're creating more roadway.
Yeah.
Right, more
So
right away.
Morgan, Saunders, and Mooney.
And they're extending water and wastewater into their development.
We are?
They are.
And they have to meet the new RV regulations because they are extending. So it's not just a Caliche roadway kind of thing. Should not be anyway.
Okay, so how are the RVs gonna be driving in there? Because I know we had Ms. Buckin that was here, and we didn't approve it because we were turning into the 361, and that was not going to.
They've got
there's gonna be
access off of
traffic.
Morgan and off of Mooney.
So how are they gonna pull
The-
in?
Their main entrance is going to be off of 361 onto the site, and there'll be another entrance off of Morgan.
And how do they
There will
get
be
to
no
Morgan?
access, there'll be no
Through
access off of.
361.
So they're all gonna come into 361, right?
Right,
And they're gonna be driving off at 361, turning into it.
right.
Because I know we had a concern about the traffic coming in into there. That concerns me, people from 361 to, because that's a very busy road right there.
Right. Our concern was how close they were to the intersection, but since this is a TxDOT right-of-way, TxDOT controls the
Yeah.
entrance and exits off of 361.
They can close them?
They control.
They control.
I'm saying, okay, I'm sorry, I heard close.
No, they control.
Okay.
Plus, this is also it's a county section, so we can ask, but as long as it meets the TxDOT spacing requirements.
Yes. And they do.
Have they submitted any drawings on what it's gonna look like?
I think we got a print in here.
Yes.
What the layout is.
Well, it's,
Here's the layout.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, it's gonna be freaking things.
This is the proposed layout.
That's just my,
Any other questions for council?
I was just concerned about the
Turn it.
And the
361.
The other plat is off of Goodnight and Arch, the old, what is it? Stripes behind the, behind the HEB.
Uh-huh.
They're going to demolish that building and put up a retail center, anchored by, I think, a Spanky's.
Where?
Right there.
The old stripes
Those
next
stripes
to
behind
HEB.
HEB.
You know what
Right back
HEB?
there.
And
Okay.
for your information, the barber shop will remain.
It's been a while
Oh,
since I've been
goodness.
there.
I know that's my dad's spot, so don't get rid of it.
All right?
You and Eric, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel.
So, Mayor, they are available for public comment if anybody in the
Would anybody want to speak on public side,
On
their
either one.
views on any of those? And if not, we're gonna continue on. What's the favor of the council for item 9, 1 through
make a motion, we approve item 9-1.
Is that both of them?
Yes.
9-1 is the RV. Oh, I'm sorry, it is both.
Both, all right.
NPO 4 and NPO 5.
I second the motion.
All fair say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Well,
opposed?
I oppose because I don't like that. I'm against that first one, the RV. I'm okay with the second one, but they're all together, so I guess I oppose both of them.
So you're only opposing the first one?
The first one with the RV.
Let's bring us to item 10. Ms. Donna or Sylvia? Or?
No, we're actually going to public safety.
Okay.
Takes you to Eric.
Yeah, we're right, Eric.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll make this quick. The first one is for the DEA cooperative agreement. This is an annual agreement that we renew. Because of their time constraints in Austin, I had to go ahead and sign this agreement, but I'm given a 30-day escape if need be. But I'm bringing it to your attention now. And yes, we kind of did strategically plan last week's operation before this meeting. Actually, we knew it was going to be this month, and I was able to get them to do it right before this meeting. That was an Aransas Pass initiated investigation almost 2 years ago. Yes, that was our entirely our investigation that we did. Our two guys assigned to the DEA. I've been harping on them. I want a local impact case, a couple of those addresses, and Tristan, who everybody knows now, Paul Tristan, been dealing a lot of dope into this community, and so we targeted those individuals and very successful, and we're looking at some good prison sentences.
Good.
Hopefully they don't come back. But as we're seeing, some of the drug criminals are being released. So anyway, this is just to renew, 12-1 is to renew that agreement, giving me approval on the signature that I placed. If not, we can pull out.
Do I hear a motion for approval 12-1?
I make a motion that we approve the MOU.
Is there a second?
Second.
All fair say aye.
Aye.
I
Aye.
have a question. What happened with
Yes.
10? Did we-
Oh, it's
Anything
blank.
with it?
10's blank there. That's why they skipped over.
12T.
12-2, that item is related to the 1033 program, which is basically a federal surplus. I have Sergeant Muniz here if there are any particular questions about that program. He is well versed on it and helped me prepare the agenda item. But basically, this is Department of Defense property that is no longer going to be used. Some of it's brand new. We have to send an employee to training, and then we can start putting in to try to acquire some of this property to assist us in our operations here. Perfect example, some of that property may help us better prepare for like the flooding event, and I think that's what really prompted Sergeant Muniz to really push forward in this direction. He was one of the primary people working during that event, and we had a few officers on the street that were not able to get through the waters because we only had one big truck out at that time. But even that truck had limitations, so he really forged ahead, and I appreciate his work and effort on this. I would appreciate if council would bless us on pursuing this agreement and moving forward.
So what is this, like deuce and a halves and stuff like that, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, big properties, you know, like an MRAT, for example. But here, David, I'll bring him up. I get to see how he does in public speaking. Looking forward to that. Please open up.
I'm Dave Muniz. I'm one of the patrol supervisors. Basically, this program, to sum it up, you can get anything from socks to a big heavy vehicle. You did mention MRAPs. Yes, those are available. You have to do a justification of why you need these vehicles. They don't just hand you these vehicles. But ideally, yes, the reason why I wanted to get access to this program is so we could get bigger vehicles to assist in major flooding or any type of evacuations. And these vehicles are accessible to us. The nearest location to obtain these vehicles is in San Antonio. So all our officers would have to do is drive to San Antonio after we pick for these vehicles and go check out the vehicle. If we like it, we can bring it back. If not, we leave it there. The vehicles in particular, anything bigger than a truck, after we're done using it, we have to return it back to the military. Back again to the socks. If after a year we still have the socks, we get to keep the socks and do whatever we want with them. So
You're talking about socks too that we wear, correct?
That's correct. Socks, boots.
It's not a crazy acronym.
No,
So-
no. Socks, boots, meals ready to eat, fans, anything you can think of.
Pumps, water pumps and stuff
Yes.
like that?
Yes.
Good deal.
Any questions I can answer for you all?
Sounds good to me.
Do you already have some equipment you have in mind, or what?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So, and I'm gonna try and, if we get approved, trying to get at least 2 Hummers first. on
Okay.
these. So,
All right. Good deal.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there a motion for approval for item 12T?
Make a motion, we approve item 12-2.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Hey, should be good now. Here we go.
Chief Scott?
And Council, in front of you have the monthly stats for the fire department covering both June and July. So we're keeping pretty steady with our calls, which is elevated as we talked about before. The third sheet, if you look, we got another heat map kind of showing where the saturation of these calls are coming. And right behind that, you'll see the type of calls. But going down the front of this, we're still projected for about 557 this calendar year. As far as some of the projects we've been working on, we're working on the business occupancies. We've added a total of 190 businesses, and this will make a little bit more sense when we next session when we talk about the actual doing the inspections and stuff. But we know there's 190 businesses that we've got information on, pre-fire plans. This date range, we did 20 fire inspections. And we're actually went ahead and started a program where we're actually inspecting city buildings now. So we've gotten the police department, the city hall, the fire department, showing that we're held just as accountable as every other business in here. We're doing these repairs, doing the inspection and getting the repairs. When it comes to training, this month we had there's 2 month range. We had 275 hours of certificate training, which is basically, they went and got something from Texas A&M, FEMA, whatever it is. It's a certificate type class. And in-house, we only covered 32 hours. And that's significant, but it typically be a lot more. We've had some big projects, one of them being the hydrants, some of them being the fire inspections. They've kind of taken us off our normal path. And then also, of this training, we offered 2 of these classes outside departments. We're starting to, we want to be the gold standard of the coastal being here, and get these people wanting to come and get this top-notch quality classes from us. I've got a MOU set up with the FEMA and TEEX. So when I teach a class, if I have the certification, I'm allowed to teach it, and they get a certificate from FEMA or TEEX, just because and we can do it at distant learning at a huge savings to the city. The fire hydrant project, I'm glad to say, is actually now complete. The initial knowing, we're indexed, and we know where all the city hydrants are now. Well, there may be 1 or 2 that snuck, they're kind of maybe out in the field or something like that we don't, but we've captured all that. We went street by street, we have them. We have 415 hydrants in this city. So of that, this period here, we tested 359. So just letting you know that all the in-city hydrants have been cataloged, and now we'll shift into a maintenance program where now this is where we're going out there and we'll put them on more of a routine where we're doing the weed eating and the painting them and more of the MIEP type status stuff that we were doing and putting that on a cycle where they're doing this every week and less intrusive where we're just going out there and just seeing tons and tons of testing, which people wasn't too sure what was going on. And now, so we've started to build on that. We're now indexing and testing the hydrants in our AHJ. So getting those just outside the city limits that we would tap into. They belong to the city, and it's something we would use if we had a fire there. So we're trying to capture those now. So we're kind of slowly letting this web kind of get a little bit bigger. No injuries, no near misses to report in the time range. And then something I'm kind of proud to discuss is some free money I found in the department. It's something I've been pretty diligent at here lately, just trying to see. I know it's out there. So what we've gathered so far is from House Bill 2604, I've put all the firefighters through real-life training where they had a a fire truck that's been outrigged by an engineer to throw you into a skid. Very low speeds. They drop a carriage, so you're driving it, and a carriage comes down below, and it causes it to go into a skid, and lets you real life have to get out of that skid in a controlled environment. But it's a real skid, which is real important when we look at, we got this brand new truck, and we actually have some newer firefighters they're going to come through the ranks, and they're going to be drivers soon. Also, House Bill 2604 paid for the Texas Fire Chiefs Academy, and I've sent 2 people to a plans examiner to kind of, again, building our program, our inspection bureau to do inspections. So you can see some of the amounts that I've actually, I've captured for them. These are actually the ones that are bolded. You look, I've already got the check in. Those are actually deposited. Some other grants that I have out there is Helping Heroes, $11,000 for a couple air packs. Looks really promising. I'll have an answer first week of October, and it'll fund shortly thereafter. I have a grant out with TISMUS it's a 90-10 grant for a water tender. That could be a really nice feather in a hat to kind of, $200,000 grant, again, free money. And then also have another House Bill 2604, Fire Inspector 1 and 2, which has been approved. And the reason I threw it down here is because it's been approved and they've got the check ready to cut us, but the classes actually got postponed. So I'm trying to see what I can put them in outside of that. So the rest of what you have here is just a supplemental, just kind of what I talked about if you want to look at some of the calls that we're typically making. The EMS stuff, while it looks high, that's really consistent with what I would expect us to be making, and then the training hours behind that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you go out and test all these hydrants and you put those new fancy little thing that says out of service on?
Yes, sir.
What is the protocol to get those back in service?
So we're collaborating with Public Works. So
Okay.
when we get this information, I'm capturing anything, I'm gathering everything from the location of the hydrant, the GPS coordinates, who made the hydrant, what year, what size barrel, how many ports, and then we actually go out there and we try to test it. So obviously, if it said, you see the out of service tag on that, it's something came up. It's typically we're not able to get water out of it. Well, it might be anything from a broken stem to it's loose, at the base, something that I could not use. So even some of them, they got problems, but we can use them. So what happens is I have a work order built into our electronic system. I have got with Public Works. I've given them access into our software, so they have their own login. They can come and see. When I create that work order, they look on their front page. They see all the hydrants that are out of service and all the ones that have work orders. So work orders may be, hey, some rusted bolts or the chains missing off the cap, something very minor, but something we want to look at. Just going to be not that urgent as it would be an out of service. So per NFPA, I mark it as out of service. So when my guys come up there, they know not to hook up to that hydrant. Letting us know. And then I actually like it. Lets the citizens know that hydrant's, and maybe they make that phone call that kind of gets us working more efficiently to get those back in service. Anyway, so they'll come back, and so the work's assigned. As a bit of redundancy, I actually email Fernando a list of the hydrants that I have out of service. And we have it set up now where once a month I'm going to drive and check all those hydrants because they might have got put back in service and and there was a break in the communication or whatever. So I kind of confirm that once a month.
Okay, so and that was going to be my second question, just to make sure that we don't have a hydrant that's been out of service for more than a month or two, or
yes,
I know
some of
one
these
that's
are
been out of
bigger
service
projects.
for
And it certainly be a Public
year.
Works questions that they require hot taps because they, the system it's been there for a while, so it's not as simple as turning off a valve. And excuse me, maybe if somebody else has some information, but they can't turn those valves off to turn the water off to replace it. So they have to do what I've been told is called a hot tap.
Correct.
And that's I think it's going to be a third party that does that. So you make it where they have 2 or 3 of those at a time.
Did we really?
We just bought a machine.
Good.
Okay,
We
good.
do
So
our own
there you go.
hot tap.
But anyways, that's some of those that they know about.
6 and 8 inch.
And I thank my guys for doing the hard work so that we know which ones they are now.
Well, and that's, I want to make sure that we don't just put something out of service,
Absolutely.
we put it back in service, especially when we lose hydrants off of multiple blocks.
Absolutely. There's nobody wants those hydrants there more than us, So that's why I said once a month, let's go back and check them, and I'll send that back. Over. We're all tasked with lots of stuff, but I definitely get a feeling from Public Works it's just as much a priority as for them as it is for me.
Okay.
So we've put. I
Trying to
know.
standardize those as well. There are multiple types of hydrants.
Right. I know for a fact that they've already come back and said, "Hey, here's your ring back. We put brand new hydrants on 3 of them." So I mean, they're on top of it. They really are.
How much hose do you carrying your truck?
Depends on which truck. The layout truck has 1,200 foot.
1,200 foot.
And that's, all that's set up by NFPA of how much. Because after that, the coefficient is so great that you got to put trucks in tandem because you lose, you lose water pressure. You just wouldn't get any.
That's the question I have.
No problem. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
The development standard is 3 not to exceed 500 feet between hydrants and hose lay. So if they're not within 500 feet of a hydrant, 300 feet typically, the fire chief's got to give approval for 500 feet. If they're not within that space, then the developer, whoever's trying to build, is required to install a hydrant.
Do we put like a jockey pump or something to help pressure it or not?
You just put a truck in between,
Just to help push
and it
forward?
boosts it up.
All right, that brings us to item 13, citizen comments. Floor is now open. Please state your name, your address, and anything you'd like to address to the council into the microphone, please.
Hello, my name is Victor Lamas. I know we've all been here for quite some time. I'll make this short. I wanted to see about changing the ordinance as it stands now for the transfer station. It's been recently changed, from what I understand, to where if you go to the transfer station, you need some kind of permit, but that doesn't apply to businesses, and that's what I want to get changed, because we're paying for this service already, but now y'all guys are requiring us to pay even more for it. And it's not like we're in a residential area where we can put it on the curb, because they won't pick it up for us. So there's really no way to get it done, even though we're paying for this.
You get charged for something you can't take advantage of.
Exactly. So that's what I wanted to
Which
see.
ordinance will
change
we
it.
have to revise? Sir?
Well, a couple of things. I think when we talked, we said not, because what I presented to the council for, in preparation of you coming up is, okay, how do we, because I agree, you shouldn't be charged for something that you can't use.
Right.
So removing the solid waste fee from the commercial businesses if we're not going to be picking up. But even the residents are only allowed a certain amount to dump, and commercial businesses, especially if it's a tree trimming or whoever, to go dump and to just allow it at no cost the way we do the residents is difficult. So.
Because right now we're doing, is it a truckload or a trailer load for the permit?
With the voucher, they come, they get a voucher. It's a truckload.
And
It's
the
a
thing is,
Once a month.
and I think the real problem is y'all guys are kind of grouping in the trash with the brush, and I think that's where the problem lies, because we're talking about the cost for it, and the cost is a lot higher for the trash than it is for the brush, especially in the city of Aransas Pass, because they don't actually do anything with the brush; they just leave it there, and it just kind of
I
rots.
think so. Like one of the things is like, and hypothetically, if you had a tree trimming service.
Yeah, well, that's totally different.
I know, and I think that's what we're trying to prevent. Correct? Like if you actually had a business making, and you charge me to cut my trees and haul off my brush, and then you go down to the city and you dump it down.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. But I guess what I'm referring to is like, for our property, we have trees that we trim, and really, I don't even think a truckload is really much, because that's not even a whole tree.
I agree.
That's like nothing for brush. I mean, trash, that makes sense, but we should make it to where businesses are allowed to dump it there without being,
That's not what
charged.
they would fill it up quicker than an individual.
Yeah.
No.
That's what I would think.
Well, I mean, I can't. I had to cut down all my trees, so I didn't have to use transfer station.
Yeah. The commercial businesses that come and use a transfer station right now are responsible for about 90% of the fill up that happens there. So by the time our residents come in, there's no room. That's why we went to the voucher system. If you have a voucher, you're going to get to dump no matter what. If we have to come back and put it on a roll-off later on, you're going to get to dump. You took the time to come get a voucher during the week. It would be crazy for us to turn you away on a weekend.
Right.
And that's what was happening because those roll-offs are full. What I had suggested is, fine, we remove the solid waste fee off of the utility bill for those businesses that are classified as commercial. That seems to be the fair thing to do. Don't pay for something you're not using.
Exactly.
But the user fee, in terms of if you're going to use a transfer station, there is a fee that has to come associated with that.
Right.
So if you're not going to pay it on the utility bill, there's a fee that's due at the transfer station. And the difference in where do you draw the line of per commercial business? You know, the tree trimmer guy is going to say, well, I just cut my tree and my neighbor's tree. I'm not really a business. I only do it on the side. But, you know, you can see where that's going to go quickly downhill.
Just something to look at to review?
Yeah, it's just something I'm suggesting we look at. I'm not suggesting we actually do what I say, but I would also recommend that maybe you look at other cities and see how they're doing it, because I was looking at opening up, changing one of our businesses and opening up a shop there for a business, and I talked to them about how they deal with their brush, and they allow any resident or business that's within the city limits, and as long as you have proof that you're within the city limits, and they allow you to dump it for free. It doesn't matter if you pay the water bill, the trash,
What city is this?
Ingleside. And this is for brush. I'm not talking about the trash for the
Right.
roll-up containers and everything like that. Because they have a system in place to where they handle the brush, where they chop it up and get into mulch. And they even allow residents or businesses to take that mulch for free if you want it. And they have a whole stack of it for you too. So I'm just recommending that we look into that.
Yes, sir.
And it's not like this, the city of Ingleside is not actually mulching it. They have a contractor come in and they mulch it up too. And that would be a great thing to do for our transfer station, to get rid of that big piles of brush we have, because as it stands right now, it costs the city absolutely nothing for having that brush sit there.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we do. Instead of putting it out instead of the curb, we like to take it all the way, because we buy the equipment to do that. And it's just more convenient. It makes it look, it makes it look a lot better too. Yeah. And one of the things I had to do recently is, because I found out that they're going to start charging us, was I had to dump it off in my actual my residence, and I didn't think that was actually, yeah, it's really better off just dropping it off at the very source instead of tricking the system, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's very,
Thank you, Victor.
all right, thank you.
Appreciate it, sir. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a citizen comment? No? And if not, they'll close our citizen comments. And I got 10:22. Do I hear a motion for adjournment of the meeting? Unless I'm missing something.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All first say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Go for water break at 11.